Hey gang, thanks for joining me. We're going to do a little flash photography, what I would call cinema lighting, Songbird cinema lighting. I'm using two lights. I'll show you the equipment that I use in a second, and a lot of captures. And it should be a fun slideshow coming up. And some interesting things. So I got the idea, being a retired wedding photographer, I've never, and I've talked about this once before in a previous video, last year sometime, I think. But, excuse me, I've never been one for putting a flash on the camera and firing it directly at a subject. If you do that with a wedding dress, you basically blow the shot. Brides tend to go with a particular wedding dress a lot of times because of the detail in the dress. Now, flat frontal lighting does nothing for showing the detail. So, capturing the detail. What you need to do is you need to rake the light across the dress. Same with people. Portrait lighting. There are times when you use, people use ring lights and for glamour and stuff like that. But for songbirds, where there's so much detail in the feathers and color gradations and stuff like that, I wouldn't do it. If you like that, cool, do it to it. But that's not my thing. So I got thinking, I thought, well, what happens if I use an off-camera flash as a main light and then employ a modest setup compared to what I used to do with wedding photography? I used 3 off-camera lights with one light on the camera as a fill, set to different ratios using Pocket Wizards. And it produced lighting like the movies, just like the movies. It's incredible. And what if I did that with Flappy Birds? With songbirds. So the results are quite stunning. I think you'll see. My goal was to make the images look as natural as possible while getting that rakish effect and getting a kicker from the back. So it's not just one light. It creates like a multi-dimensional look. And also you're able to control the background brightness with this. The catch is to do it and make it look natural. That's the challenge. And I think I succeeded in many, many of the shots. I would say 80% of the shots. Now, the equipment I used is my 90D. I'll tell you why I use that. The 90D and the EF 100-400L. Mark II. And I used a Godox. Can't get it oriented so you can see it. That's the Godox remote trigger. Not sure of the exact model number on this guy. But it's for Canon. And I used, as the main light, I used the Godox V860C. And for the kicker, I used the 685-2 because I don't need the power. And these things last a long. Even this one lasts a long time. So why did I use the 90D? Because I need high-speed sync. And the mechanical shutter on this is beautiful. Now, I will be selling this, and I will be moving over to the R6 Mark II for this type of photography. This system will go right on the R6 Mark II. I've tried it. Everything works exactly the way it's supposed to. So you need high-speed sync, a camera with high-speed sync. I was shooting generally from 400th of a second up to 2,000th of a second, depending on what I was trying to accomplish in the light. I did a lot of this work in low light, because I could. But the trick with the low light, I wanted to say, is that you can make it look very unnatural by literally blasting the subject with flash. And I really didn't want to do that. So I'm going to show you the setup and how everything was oriented on the whiteboard. And there are a couple things. I can't really go into how to set your camera up in high-speed sync, but you're going to need to enable that in your camera if you're going to try this, because most cameras will limit at 1/250th of a second, and that's not going to do it, especially in brighter conditions. You're going to be up in 800th of a second, 1600th of a second, no problem. And it actually produces better results. You know, once you get really, really dark, that's when everything slows down. Even the flash photography does. It's very easy to overpower the light, get an overpowering light source. If that's what you want to go for, that's fine. But I'll just say that produces kind of an artificial effect. And I think you'll see that in a few of the images here. You can kind of tell that, my goal was to have it subtle, but rake the light across the feathers and across the bird so it will really pull out the detail. And that's where, in low light, this is a great way to get some absolutely stunning captures in very low light. When the light is really dull and flat and gray, this will make your images pop, and you can still get them to look natural if you're careful. So the one thing, I shot in full manual, and what I ended up doing was I set the camera up so that I could control the shutter speed. I fixed the aperture, and I could control the shutter speed and the ISO so that when you look at the image through the viewfinder and you grab the picture and you look at it, you can control the background brightness. So what I was able to do is subdue by increasing the shutter speed and adjusting the power of the flash on this remote head right here, of the two flashes independently of one another. I could control the background brightness, which creates like a three-dimensional effect on the bird. You can still see the background, and you can blow the background out completely black if you want to. You can hit that thing with a ton of light, and the background will go completely jet black. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted some semblance of them in their natural environment, not like in a studio. So that's how I did it. Oftentimes, I just rolled the shutter speed or the ISO. And more often than not, I was shooting at -2/3 to 1 full stop under. And then I would compensate with a flash. And what that did was it would drop the background brightness down, the exposure in the background, and yet maintain exposure on the bird. See where I'm going? Really cool stuff. So let me jump over to the other camera, and I'll grab the whiteboard, and I'll show you how I had things positioned. So if we look here, I was shooting from the hide, and I meant to mention in the previous video, when I'm in the hide, I'm always on a gimbal. I'm always on the gimbal. So I don't bring the camera up to my eye when I'm ready to shoot. That spooks the birds. You don't want to, and I'm close. So this is the same setup as before. The hide's approximately 12 feet away from the feeder. Very, very close. And I had perches around the feeder and above the feeder that I could use where the birds would stage. And so I was about 12 feet away. and the main flash was at a 45-degree angle. So it was kind of positioned at a 45 between the hide and the feeder, but mostly the feeder. So what that does is it rakes the light across. Now, you're completely dependent upon which way the bird is facing, right? So that's something you can't get away from. You can't do anything about that. You can't, like, unless you have a motorized tripod and you can, like, move it rapidly, which will spook the bird and you won't get the shot anyways. So this is a fixed setup, 45-degree angle to the feeder. That's the main light, the strongest light. This is the kicker, what I call a kicker. And this is from behind at a 45-degree angle. And I place them so they're firing right at each other, like this. And this provides a backlight, which if you do it right, you'll see around the edge of the bird, and in certain parts of the bird, you can see another light source, but it doesn't jump out at you, but it creates a dimensional effect. So that's how that's done. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to get on to the slideshow, and I think I covered everything as far as setting up your flash equipment. You're going to have to learn how to do that. I don't have time to. I mean, I can go through it. If you guys let me know you want me to explain to you exactly how I do it, like the settings and everything, I can do that. But what the Godox remote head allows you to do is you can set like your flash power at 1/128th all the way up to full power, like 128, 164, 32, 16, 1/8 power, 1/2 power, or 1/4 power, 1/2 power, full power. You see where I'm going? So, and you can do that with each flash independently of one another. So how I did it was I didn't set up my main flash to be the same power, my kicker to be the same power as the main flash. You really don't want to do that. You can if you want to. Sometimes they were fairly close, but generally in low light, I had it up to as much as half power on the main flash at one point, with maybe 1/16th, 1/8 to 1/16th on the kicker. And sometimes down as low as like 132, 1/32nd power on the main flash, and which is in low light, right? And on the kicker, it was at like 1/64th or 1/28th, just to provide that kick in the background. So hopefully, if you guys aren't familiar with flash, you're going to have to study that if you've never tried this stuff before. But it's all experimentation. You do it a few times. Like when I was shooting weddings, I used a light meter. The first couple times I set up in the reception area, and I used it around the dance floor. So I had 3 lights, and I literally, after 2 times, I could eyeball it because it all works on distance of the light source to the subject. Further away they are, the more power you need in the flash. I'm putting it in layman's terms. I could just look at the dance floor and say, okay, stand goes there, there, there. I got my fill flash on the bracket on the camera, just for fill if I'm in a dead zone. Set it like 1/16th, 1/8 power. And I'd look at it and go, okay, that one goes at half power, that one goes at 1/4, this one goes at full power, whatever. I could just look at it, the distance, and know how to set the flashes without even using the meter. And I'd take one test shot and go, yep, that's it, off and running. And we're off and running, folks. It was fast, it was quick. A lot of people are afraid of it. It is not hard to do once you do it a few times. So this is the same thing. Once you try it, this setup, I will tell you, you're probably looking at, the main light is more expensive. Probably looking at about $400 for the whole setup. Now, you don't need to use a kicker. You can get and you can get by. You can easily get by with a cheaper one. This is the cheaper one, the TT685. This thing's got a lot of smoke to it. It will work as the main light. You don't have to use the big dog. This one's close to $200, I think, the 860, V860. So, but this has got a lot of power, and this has a totally different battery cell in it. Very, very high voltage. And you won't kill these. You could run this system for a week. I actually haven't charged this, and I've got, I don't know how many days shooting with culled images. I would say maybe 20 or 30. That were my favorite, but there's so many more I could have chosen. I was just like, I can't do it to you guys. A lot. I had a lot of great images, and some caught my eye, and I pulled them out and ran them through some Topaz, made sure everything was all cool, and boom, exported them as JPEGs, and here we go. So here we go with the slideshow. And I'm not going to be back, so I'll just say thanks for watching. And leave your comments in the section down below. And if you like what you see here, go ahead and subscribe. And the little ding dong. And you'll get notifications when something pops up. Catch y'all later. Take care, folks.